Let's look now at one of those who is expected to be among the first to marry under this new legislation, and that is the sister of the former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, who of course was one of the chief opponents of same-sex marriage in Australia. Sydney City Councillor Christine Forster plans to marry her long-time partner, Virginia Edwards, in February next year. Christine Forster was in Sydney, central Sydney, when the news came through. I spoke to her just a short time ago. She walked down Pitt Street in the centre of the city for a citizenship ceremony back at her office.
Oh yeah, look, it was amazing. You know, the people of Australia were asked to have their say. They were asked to participate in a process that most of us didn't really want, but really what they have done is they have said loudly and proudly that they want every Australian to have equal rights, to have a fair go, and to be able to marry the person they love and are committed to before, you know, under the law of this country. It's been a really, really special moment today.
And I understand you're walking through Sydney as we speak. How does it feel? Does it feel different?
Look, this is a better, fairer, kinder country than it was yesterday, and that is the reality. And you guys have been through that in New Zealand. You know how it feels. We have been waiting for this for a long time, and sadly, politicians in Canberra have, you know, thrown curveballs at us repeatedly particularly over the last 4 or 5 years. But today, the people of Australia said yes, and that is a fantastic feeling. And there is a groundswell of emotion. People are relieved, they're happy, they're feeling like finally they are acknowledged in this country. So it's been really special.
OK, you've been speaking broadly there, but this is personal for you too, right? You've been with your partner Virginia for some time. I think you got engaged, in 2013. What does this mean for you?
Look, well, for us, you know, we're just a couple of old lesbians, and it means for us that we can get married in February, which is what we were planning. But the more important thing is, Guy, to be honest, you know, for the Australians who are the age of our children, they can now look at this, look at their futures, look at their lives, and know that they have the same opportunities, they have the same rights, they have the same future as every other Australian. You know, kids of that generation. And all the generations behind them. And that's far more important than, as I say, a couple of old bags like Virginia and me. You know, it's important for us, but it's more important for the rest of the young people of Australia who are coming up behind us, who will, as I say, have the same rights, opportunities and privileges that everybody else does. Absolutely.
You said you were planning to marry in February. What was the original plan?
Look, we were always planning to get married in February. You know, in desperation, we decided at the start of this year that we should that I would renew my British passport because I'm a dual citizen, and that we would get married in the British consulate, because at that stage, at the start of this year, it didn't look like the Australian Parliament was going to move on marriage equality. So we started planning our wedding for February under those. That was our plan B. It was a sort of a desperate plan that we didn't want to take. But when it looked like nothing was going to happen for the foreseeable future,
yeah,
we did take that step. But then we were kind of happily overtaken by events, and the Australian Parliament moved on at least holding this plebiscite, and at least bringing it to a head and having the Australian people make a decision. And the Australian people have made a decision, and now it's up to the Parliament to respect that decision and to pass the legislation as quickly as possible.
Tony Abbott, your brother, has been one of the most outspoken opponents of this, I guess. How has that been for you, managing that relationship and managing that issue?
Well, you know, Tony and I, we're adult siblings. We've always known what our differing views are on this. I know where he comes from, he knows where I come from, and while we hold our differing views, we respect each other. We love each other as siblings, as you do, and we make sure that our relationship as siblings transcends the politics. But, you know, he and I have spoken since this result was announced, and we're on the same page that we both want Parliament to pass the legislation to reform the Marriage Act to enable same-sex couples to get married in Australia as quickly as possible.
Christine, you said that you spoke to your brother. What did he say?
He said congratulations. And I'll tell you what, coming from probably the best political campaigner of his generation in Australia, it feels pretty good to have beaten him in one.
That's Christine Forster there, who's hoping to marry her partner, Virginia, when this law gets through in Australia.